As we know, Houstonians hold certain things close to their heart, and near the top, if not the top of that list, is the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. We're about a month away. For one Houston author, that energy and tradition unlocked a story. Author Liara Tamani has a new novel called This Ain't Our First Rodeo. It's a contemporary Western love story about second chances in love, family, friendships, and even in yourself. All right, Liara joins us to share how she found her voice as a writer and where you can meet her this weekend. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, about Liara, let's get the script to your life first.
Okay.
Raised in Inwood, just north of the area that borders Acres Homes. But one of the things you remember as a little girl is your mom always took you for your entertainment to the library.
To the library, yes. I love books. You know, I was outside a lot, I will say, but on the weekend she took me to the library, and I always remember roaming down the aisles and just, you know, picking out a book. It was exciting. Which one you take home?
Yeah.
You know, you check out a book and then, you know, bring
Get it back in time, or maybe not, right?
or maybe not, or maybe not.
At what point did it click in your brain? Because so many of us, you know, we read the book, but it never clicks that we can write a book.
Oh, that happened much, much later. It did not click for a long time. Even when I started hearing, oh, you're a good writer, you're a good writer, you know, I just really interpreted it as, oh, you're a good student, you know. I didn't really connect it to, I love this, I should pay attention to this, you know, until much later in life.
So parallel to that, you go to the library, but you also, being a Houstonian, you would grow up going to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo as well. And still do today.
And still do to this day. My parents took me when I was growing up, and I still go with my daughter and my husband and my friends. We go, I feel like I go at least like 2 to 3 times, like every year. Yeah. You
mentioned earlier that, you know, a teacher would say you're a good writer. But you're so right about that. When you're a good student, you just think, okay, I accomplished the assignment, right?
Yes.
And you don't think that you necessarily went above and beyond in that way. But your teachers would always say that, and you equated good writing to making good grades or being smart. You hadn't learned the value of what you loved yet.
Yes, I feel like, you know, if I would say to young people, one of the things I would say to them is pay attention to what you love and grow close to it and invite more of it into your life, you know, because you can't take it for granted. These are the things that you want to fill your life with, is the things you love. But back then I was like, oh, okay, I like to do it, you know.
There were several Godwins along the way.
Yes.
And one of them, of course, the junior high teacher. But then your freshman orientation at Duke University, you picked up your welcome packet, and the admissions officer said, okay, what's your name? And you said your name out loud, and what happened?
And he said, I loved your essay. And I was like, what? Okay.
How many times did they recognize that?
Exactly.
Right?
Out of the thousands of applications, you remembered my essay. So that was the first time I was like, ding, ding, ding. You know, I must really be a good writer.
Yeah.
But still, I was so focused on going to law school. I was like, okay, let's make these A's. You know, let's get in this political science.
For all those parents whose kids are needing to get into college, who need to write an essay, what was it about your essay that made a difference? Brad Meltzer had written a love letter to his college, right? And they were like, oh, that was creative. But what did you do?
I mean, I think I sort of wrote a love letter. I wrote a love letter to books, to the books I love, to The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, to Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. These are the books that touched me first, and that's what I wrote about in my college essay.
Okay, now guess what? Everybody's going to write an essay about, here's the book I love. Yeah, for me, like Charlotte's Web, that's some pig. All right, okay, set on guaranteed success, and you and I were talking about before the show how many times kids will go into something that they feel like either their parents want them to go into, or something that's just going to make the paycheck versus something that they really are passionate about. And so we're going to be a lawyer like your dad, and even to the point where Harvard Law School came a calling.
Yes, I made it all the way to Harvard Law School. Wow. Yes, I mean, it sounded really good, you know. And
let me tell you, it doesn't sound good. It's good.
It's good. Okay.
Right. I went to Harvard as well. To visit a friend of mine. And I did. My friend was there. But to make it to Harvard, that's such an accomplishment. But what was the point where you went, I'm not excited about this?
Yeah, no, I think it was just like the deep sadness. It was, I had put it off for a long time. I knew before I went, like, do I really want to go? And it's like, how do you not go? You got into Harvard Law. You're going to go, you know? But then when I got there and started really feeling, I felt really disconnected from the things that I love. And there was like a deep sadness in that. And I was like, okay, I'm not feeling this for the rest of my life. This ain't it. This is not it.
Yeah.
So,
you did a number of other things, kind of a windy road. You did marketing for the Houston Rockets and Comets. You moved to Los Angeles, a production assistant on a sitcom Girlfriend. friends.
Yes.
You started a home accessories business, so you were testing the waters.
I was trying to find it. I'm like, I'm gonna search until something says, okay, yeah, this is it.
Well, then you sat down one night and started writing.
Yes, and it really felt like home. It really felt like home. Yeah, and I remember that night at I had a drafting table because I was in the midst of my design business. I wrote something, and I remember including my dad in it. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember, and I was like, this is it. I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And like right away, I started taking classes at UCLA Extension.
And that's
I got
such a
into
smart
it.
thing. A lot of people they think it's just natural, like, right? You know, even if you're a great singer, great singers have taken voice lessons, right?
Yeah.
So you took the classes so that you'd understand kind of the construction of writing and all the other things behind it.
Yes.
Your first novel, Calling My Name, it took 5 years to get it published.
Yes.
That's the other thing that every famous author, just about every now and then, there's one you run across who goes, I sent it in for the first time and they took it. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, good.
But it also teaches you patience and believing in what you did.
Absolutely.
Or being able to tweak and take constructive criticism and how to fix things.
Absolutely. I feel like you have to study craft. You don't have to go to school. Nowadays there are probably online classes. There are definitely online resources. And I think just reading reading like a writer. As I write, I study everything and every, whether it's alliteration or how they use repetition, I study everything as I write.
Yeah, all right. You signed with an agent that month, and the first week you received a 2-book deal from Green Willow Books, so things started to take off there. You have your other novels, All Things We Never Knew, What She Missed, and then with your new book, you're like, okay, time for a new book. And this is one of the questions we always ask authors too, is like, where do you get your ideas from? And they say from everywhere. You never know when it's going to come. For this one, you were struggling with what's my next book going to be, and then lo and behold, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo helped you out a little bit.
Yes, helped me right out. I was like on the struggle bus. I had the title. Yes, I had the title. The title, This Ain't Our First Rodeo, and I knew it was going to be a dual POV rodeo romance because it fit the title. But I could not hear the characters. I cannot see the characters, and if you can't hear or see the characters, there's no book. And then I went to Rodeo Houston, and I walked in, and the first thing I saw was This Ain't Our First Rodeo, and I was like, wait, okay. I started paying attention, and I had gone
to God wink there.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And I was at a new fancy restaurant that had never been before. And I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. This is special. So it gave me the idea to make Josie's parents have a restaurant similar. And then I went on to the rodeo and watched bull riding, and it gave me the idea to make Shawn a bull rider. So it all started coming together at Rodeo Houston.
Yes. Okay, take us through the plot here, because we got the love story and everything else going on.
Okay, so Josie and Shawn, they meet initially when they're 15 and 16 at Rodeo Houston. Josie kind of sneaks out of her parents' fancy restaurant at the rodeo, gets into trouble, and then Shawn comes to her rescue. But don't worry, Josie comes to Shawn's rescue later on in the book. But they have a blast that night. They are riding the Ferris wheel. They are eating cotton candy. They are having funnel cakes. They are doing all the things, just having so much fun, connecting. They even slow dance, which I put in there for the young kids because I'm trying to bring slow dancing back.
Yes,
let's bring slow dancing back.
Don't dance at each other, dance with each other. All right. And like any great book does, there's just elements of all types of things in there that you incorporate, and one is kind of the African American cowboy history as well, because a lot of people forget, if you're seeing your Western, is oftentimes you didn't see African Americans in there, but we were on the forefront.
We were on the forefront, yes, absolutely. And I'm so grateful to be able to incorporate so much of that history. It's sprinkled in throughout it. I couldn't incorporate a ton of it because this is a romance, but there's so much that we don't know, that we haven't been taught. And what we know about the history, what are the stories we've been told, they affect our possibilities for the future.
Absolutely.
So to know that, when I was starting this book, people were saying 1 in 4 cowboys were black, but now I've been hearing 1 in 3 cowboys were black. That's just something that, does not fit.
They tended to the cattle even during slavery days.
Oh, 100%.
They were the ones that tended to the cattle,
they were the cattle. They were the ones that they were called cowboys.
Yes,
that's where the name came from.
So we get a little history there. there, along with an
Yes.
entertaining story and the whole
Yes.
bit. It
Yes.
is so good to meet you, and thank
Yes.
you so much. And I want to let people know you can get your own copy of this Ain't Your First Rodeo anywhere books are sold. But if you want to support a local bookstore and meet Liara, you can head to Kindred Stories on Friday for a Western-themed launch party. So get all dressed up for it. You can also meet her at the Shepherd Acres Homes Neighborhood Library on Saturday at 11 a.m. For more information on these events, visit greatdayhouston.com.